Welcome back. You're watching MMAOddsBreaker. I'm Frank Trigg. Today we got Hayder Hassan getting ready to fight Felipe Portela in Titan Fighting Championships 31. We'll get to it in a minute, but Felipe is over at Blackzilians. You're at ATT. Obviously, your Florida teams. A lot of your teammates are training with him. Former teammates are training with him over at Blackzilians. But first, I want to talk about you and your brother's experience first showing up at ATT to the pro side. Because I know everybody knows in Florida, ATT runs the entire state as far as pro MMA goes. But there's a lot of satellite schools. Talk to him when he first got the real introduction, like, hey, we want you to come to the pro practice. And kind of what was the first week like?
We got there. We got there. My brother played college ball at Georgetown. I grew up playing football and wrestling, so we had that athlete. Always been athletes our whole lives. So we got to ATT, and at the time, just from growing up in the sports that we did, we wanted to jump. We wanted to jump right into the big dogs right away. But Laborio was like, you know, you can get knocked out. This is a big deal. So we stayed pretty persistent with our training. We were training with the amateurs, and it was actually Laborio went out of town, and when Laborio was out of town, we actually got invited for one of the so at ATT back at the time we used to spar Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays was for heavy sparring. The only guys that sparred were the guys that had fights coming up. So the intensity was just like a whole nother level. So one of the striking coaches invited us, me and my brother, to come spar on Saturday with they're fighting wrestlers. They're Thiago Silva, Wilson Gouveia, Alessio Sakara, Danilo Villafort. So we were like,
Oh, wow.
and at the time, like the week before, Laborio was like, no, you need to get some more training. So when Laborio left town, we got asked, and we were like, oh man, this is awesome. This is our opportunity, you know. So it was, it was nuts, man. It was a pretty much sink or swim. I walked out of there with like two black eyes, a coconut on my head. I remember Thiago Silva kneeing me right in the head, like a full on, knee to the like full on knee clean to the shot. As I took him down, and then he got pissed that I took him down. So when I went to feint and then tried to do another takedown, he just grabbed my head and just kneed it like a coconut. And but honestly, after the round, I've never been more happy in my entire life. Like I gave Thiago Silva a kiss on the face. I was like, dude, that was the biggest honor I've ever had in my life. And the coach was like, man, you're crazy. But to me, this is what I got in the sport. Like all I've ever wanted in the sport is just give me my opportunity. Give me my opportunity. Let me show you what I could do. And that was just when I was a baby. Now I've had time to polish my skills, man. And at the time at ATT, the only guys that really got help were the ones that were in the UFC and Strikeforce and Elite XC. So you only got coached if you were really proving yourself in training against these pros. And at the time they would talk in Portuguese to the fighters because it was mainly a Brazilian gym. They would talk in Portuguese to the other fighters on how to beat you. So you were really sink or swim. So at the time, like the only coaches I really had were other teammates that I would go to war with, and they would have respect for me, and I'd ask them questions, and that's how I learned. My first three pro fights, I didn't have any coaching. I was just fighting as an athlete,
So,
and
what happened when Labario got back the next week? It was like, I told you needed more time, but all of a sudden you're at pro practice. What did he say?
yeah. So actually, he actually showed up that Saturday, and when we were already in the cage sparring, and he saw me and my brother go to war. It was basically Shark Tank. Shark Tank rules, and he saw me and my brother go to war. My brother actually ended up knocking out one of the pros within the first like minute of the live sparring. And I was a welterweight going against guys that were going against Thiago Silva, Sakara, guys that were like 220 plus. And I was holding my own. And that's what all he needed to see was the heart, the skills that we had, that we were capable of, because a lot of guys come in the gym, walk in the gym like, oh, I want to join the team. I want to, they're just, some Mr. Tough guy that,
Right.
so for him, he's siding on the side of caution. So once he had an opportunity to see us, he was really happy, and he gave us a big hug, and and that's after that moment he was like, hey, you're welcome to join the pro team. And man, I gave him a big kiss, man. I've never been more happy in my life, even though I was all both my eyes were black and blue. I had a huge coconut in my head for a week, but it was, man, for me, that was the first day of my life, if you ask me, you know?
So let's talk about Felipe Portela. He's fighting out of Team Blackzilians, but a lot of your former teammates are there. But obviously not the guys from ATT, not the ATT Pro side. Are they from part of the ATT satellite side? Like, I don't understand how they were your former teammates now over at Blackzilians.
So, no, a lot of my teammates, they were all pro fighters at American Top Team that ended up leaving American Top Team,
Oh, okay.
and they were actually the founders of the Blackzilians. They had a very good support structure with Glenn Robinson, who's actually a friend of mine as well, the owner of the Blackzilians. And he created a very great gym, great support structure, great atmosphere, great coaching for those guys, man. And for me, they're my friends, man. So I was really happy to see them have a second chance, with their careers, man, because they really deserved it. They're a great group of guys.
And for the folks at home, Glenn Robinson also owns Jocko. It's the reason why Jocko is so big right now in the country. But we're talking about guys that used to sweat, bleed, cry, get frustrated with, go out to dinner with and have drinks with, and they're now on the other side, training the guy, preparing the guy that's supposed to fight you on October 31st, Halloween night at the UFC Dome in Tampa, Florida. Do you have a little animosity? Are you a little, like, these are friends of yours, but aren't you a little, you're my boys, but you're helping this other guy? Like, don't you feel a little heat towards him now?
Man, you know what, man? To be told, a month ago, I was having barbecue with them. You know what I'm saying? It was right before I found out that I was fighting Blackzilian. But in all honesty, man, you know the game, man. It's honestly such a tight fraternity of brothers, man. In the same locker room, you share the same locker room with the guy that you might be fighting the next month or the next 2 months. So like for me, in all honesty, like they know me really well, man. They've seen, they saw me as a beginner. They've been in my corner for my fights. I just fought their teammate. My last fight, I knocked out their teammate. My last fight,
yeah, Jason Jackson, right? That was the guy you knocked out. Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Jackson. So they're very familiar. Their coaches are very familiar. I'm sure they're gonna have a blueprint, what they think is a blueprint to beat me. But for me, in my opinion, like you can train for what I'm gonna do, what I can do. But once the door closes, and the first time you're seeing that speed, that athleticism, that explosiveness, it's a whole different ball game. Like you might be able to have, some guys that can mimic me, but for me, I look at it as a challenge. Like, yeah, they're gonna be coached. They're gonna tell them all my strengths, what they think are some weaknesses. But to me, I'm looking at that as like the ultimate challenge. As like, let me show you what's up, man. You're gonna tell them. I know they're my boys. They want to see me do well, but they want to see their team do well too. So for me, like that's just the icing on the cake because I'm gonna go out there and knock their boy out. They're gonna be happy for me. You know, even though they're probably not going to be publicly saying happy because they don't want to be mess up their team. But I mean, honestly, man, I don't really care. When it comes down to it, they're gonna be my friend before. They're my friends before. They'll be my friends after. But business is business, and I'm in the hurt business, and I'm really damn good at it. And
you're 5-1, and Felipe's 8-1. You have 4 KOs and 1 decision. So you're 5-1, and he's 8-1. You've got 4 KOs with 1 decision. In your wins, you have 1 loss by TKO. Break down Felipe for us as a fighter. Like I know you've seen tape on him. I know your coaches are going through and trying to give you a good game plan. How do you see him as a fighter, and what do you think he's trying to do to you? What do you think the blueprint is that his coaches are telling him to try to come in to beat you with?
That only loss that I had actually wasn't a TKO, man. That was my 3rd pro fight. I was fighting as an athlete. I just came off 2 knockouts. Actually, I got caught in a guillotine, and I went to sleep in the guillotine. So I don't know.
Okay.
That's the TKO. I don't know why they put it as a TKO, but I went to sleep in a guillotine.
Probably what happened is, to be honest with you, because now I'm doing a lot of reffing in the sport, and what I find out is that a lot of times the bell keepers, the guys that hit the gong and keep time, and the guys who are actually at the commission table don't necessarily know what's going on. So the ref could have walked over and said, "Oh, it was a TKO." And when in reality it was a submission because you got put out in a guillotine, but they didn't know that. It's trust me, it's not a followable situation. There's still a lot of flaws within the commissions of how things are worked out. This is what happens.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, honestly, like that might be to me that he might think is my weakness. But for me, that one loss was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, man. You know, at the point in time, it was my first fight on TV, so I was excited. You know, I was coming off 2 knockouts. I wanted to have like a highlight KO. You know,
Right.
I was, so I let my emotions kind of get to me. You know, because I wanted first one on TV. I want to knock this dude out, show everyone I'm the man. But what I learned right off the bat, fighting is chess, not checkers. You know, you have to let the things develop. It's the same thing in football. What happens when the quarterback forces the pass? It gets intercepted. You know, you have to things develop, see your openings, and that's what I learned. As soon as I woke up from that submission, I was like, oh crap. But I knew right away. So I didn't say I lost. I said, now I'm set to win for the rest of my career. You know, so for me, if he thinks that's my one weakness, dude, I train with Laborio. On every single day on the mat, we have at least 10, 20 black belts. You know, I train with the baddest dudes that you can possibly train with. You know, so if he thinks my ground is weak, honestly, good luck trying to take me down, man. I have some of the fastest hips, in my opinion, in the division. So if he's able to take me down before my ass even hits the mat, I'm gonna be right back up. You know, I train for all areas. As far as Felipe, man, Felipe's a stud, dude. He's 8-1. You know, he's fought in Strikeforce. I fought in Strikeforce before too. He's fought high caliber opponents. I fought high caliber opponents. You know, he's a Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu fighter. I, you know, I look at myself as a boxer that has great kicks too. You know, I got knockout power in both hands, both feet. You know, I'm an athlete, man. When it all comes down to it, I'm an intelligent athlete, and the true fighters are the ones that in high risk situations they can slow things down and make adjustments. And to me, that is my greatest attribute is being able to make adjustments during high pressure situations. And I take pride in my conditioning. So from the first round to the third round, I'm going to have knockout power. And whether he gives me the opening or I'll create my opening, I'm going to knock him out. I can't, if it's in the first, in the second. But I will tell you from 0-0, I'm going to be headhunting and I'm going to be putting pressure on him and I'm going to fold. I'm going to make him fold. I'm going to break him.
Okay,
And that's my mission for
let's
this
talk
fight.
about your team for a second. Who's a tougher guy? Not saying when they fight which one's going to win if they ever fight. I'm just saying in the room, who's a tougher guy for you to train with? Tyron Woodley or Thiago Silva? Who's tougher for you to work out with?
You know, honestly, man, me and Woodley, we've never worked together, man. You know, he lives out in Missouri. He has his ATT evolution out in St. Louis, Missouri. So every time he comes to ATT, he's really, really selective who he trains with. You know,
At that point when he shows up, it's very specific to the type of talent he has to compete against.
it's very, very selective, and honestly, he's here for such a short period. He comes for like 1 to 2 week periods at a time, and then he's gone. It's either to the beginning of his camp or right towards the end. And at that point, exactly like he said, it's very specialized, very specific.
Well, how about Robbie Lawler? Have you worked out with Robbie Lawler when he's down there?
Yeah, man, Robbie Lawler's a beast, man. You know, he's a stud, man. I'm super pumped for his fight. Honestly, some of my main training partners are Hector Lombard, Pitbull, Thiago Alves. You know, Hector Lombard was one of my first.
Okay, now Hector has a really bad reputation that I was even told because Labarro even warned me, hey, look, you show up, be careful of Hector because he's got one switch. It's on or it's off. He's not like a speed car where there's like first gear, second gear, third gear. He's got one switch on and off. And if it's on, he's trying to hurt you, he's trying to maim you, he's trying to put you down, he's trying to knock you out, even in practice. And it shows in his fights because his knockout power, like you said, you have from 0-0 knockout power, but so is Hector. Do you feel like when you're working out with Hector Lombard, like sometimes you're like, I gotta be real cautious. This guy's it's not he's being mean or he's trying to prove a point with a younger kid. This is just the way he trains. He's trying to win a fight. He's trying to win money. Do you feel like sometimes when you're with him training that you're like, I really got to be cautious because I might get hurt just training with him?
Honestly, man, Hector's one of my best friends on the team. Me and Hector have gone skydiving together. He's been over my house for Thanksgiving. But the only reason we're this close is because we have gone to war against each other. He was
stupid Cubans.
honestly,
That's just how they are. how they work. You sit and eat or drink with a Cuban, you hang out with a Cuban, then he's in love with you, but you got to go to war with them to really understand the differences in how they work. It's amazing to me. That's kind of how Cubans, every Cuban I ever wrestled against, that's kind of how it was. That when you eat and drink with them and hang out with them, and go to war with them, all of a sudden they're your best friends. But if you're just a guy that competes across them from across the mat or across the ring, they're kind of like, they're kind of dismissive and they really don't care. But do you feel because you guys are so close as friends that Hector takes even more chances with you and does even more things with you because you guys are so close?
Honestly, so when Hector first came to the gym, not many guys trained with him because, like you said, he would knock them out pretty damn quickly, you know. And for me, you know, I was a big welterweight, and he, you know, at the time I walked around at 205, and I cut down to welterweight, and he fought at middleweight at the time, and he was a big middleweight. So naturally, I was a younger athlete, I was a younger fighter. So when you're a younger fighter, you get thrown to the fish, you know, you get thrown to the sharks.
Yeah.
And for me, I was trying to get attention. I was trying to get coaches to work with me. So every time I went with Hector, I mean, it was literally, man, I needed to get paid, you know, like it was a fight, you know, it was a fight. I mean, you know, I mean, if there was YouTube footage of that, man, I don't know how many hits that we would have but honestly, it ended up being the biggest blessing I've ever had because we would go to war. Like every punch I threw was to knock him out. Every punch he threw was to knock me out. And because of that, because of the wars that we had, he ended up being one of my first striking coaches at ATT. He took time to help me with my striking because I didn't hold back. A lot of guys, they're so timid when they spar him that, you know, they're afraid to jab him hard because if they jab him hard, then Hector's going to jab them or come back with a hard 1, 2, 3. So they're very, very timid. And when they're timid, you know, he ends up turning it up, you know. And for me, you know, that's just not how, you know, I came from a football background, you know, wrestling background. So like, you know, in football, if you hesitate, you know, and there's a big ass lineman coming out, you're going to get run over, you know. So I just had that mentality, you know, to, man, someone's trying to hit me, I got to hit him harder, you know. And with him, you know, he appreciated that, man, because he used to get really upset because he would have, man, no one's training with me, no one can train with me because no one wanted to get hurt. But for me, I looked at it as like, man, I need to train with him so the coaches can see that I'm tough and that I can get work, you know. So for me, it was, you know, I looked at it as a win-win situation. You know, he would, you know, damn, you know, he's a beast, he was a killer, you know. But I looked at it as I was learning, you know. And after I lost that fight by submission, you know, Hector was one of my main sparring partners for my next fight in Strikeforce, you know. And when I busted my ass, me and him would spar, man, 3 times a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, man, 8 to 10 rounds a day. So almost 30 rounds of hard sparring. And I would ask Hector, I'm like, yo, Hector, spar with me today, you know. And we would go to war, you know. I get split open, I got my head cut open, I got my eyebrows cut open. But man, when I fought in Strikeforce, man, I dropped the dude in the first, knocked him out in the second, you know. And I looked at Hector, I said, yeah, it's because of you, brother, you know. And you know, and to this day, man, that's just the mentality, you know. Hector's my brother, man, you know. Yeah. That's you know, that's just how it is, you know. Some people aren't as close, but I'll tell you what, Hector is one of the most genuine, one of the most humble, one of the most beautiful human beings you can ever meet. What I appreciate the most about Hector is he is honest. He's the most honest person you will ever meet. If he thinks you're being shady, he's going to say, yo, you're being shady. If he thinks you're full of shit, he's going to say, yo, you're full of shit. And you have to appreciate a man with that much honesty, you know. And honestly, now I've seen him countless times. Guys will come into the gym, you know, with like a torn shirt. He'll go into his bag. He'll go off his own shirt, take his shirt off his own back, give it to the guy. Come back to the gym later that afternoon with 5, 10, 20 t-shirts. Give the guy, you know, a whole pack of shirts, pack of clothes, I mean, man, gloves, equipment. He gives it to everybody. Yeah. He's a beautiful human being. The rumors of him being a beast, he's a beast. Look, you know, he's a beast, but he's also a beautiful beast, you know. Yeah. And I love him, man. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Is he going to corner you in your next fight? Does he ever corner you?
He cornered me for my second pro fight, which I ended up winning by knockout. I think he's going to be there at this fight. But not he won't be in my corner, but I think he'll be there for support.
Well, yeah, it's close. It's, going from Southern Florida all the way up to Tampa is not that far. So obviously he'll be in the crowd. I was just wondering if he's going to be in your corner. Dude, it was a pleasure to finally get to meet you and talk to you and have an interview with you. Good luck again in this next fight. It's going to be great. Titan Fighting Championships been doing a great job of promoting their guys and making sure you guys get a lot of TV time. I think you've got the star power, and you're young in the MMA career with only being 5-1, but you've got a lot of star power coming up, and it's going to be great to see how things work out here in the next 5 or 6 fights.
Hey, man, much love, Frank. I really appreciate you, brother. Thanks for taking the time, man. It's an honor, brother. Thank you.
All right, we got it. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. Have a great night.
You too.
Later, brother.